Hello, hello. Good afternoon. Welcome to the CO Visit in this live stream. Colin here, and as always, got my trusty coffee. Man, it seems like there's a storm kicking up here. I hope I'll be able to transmit this information. Got to make sure I put on all of my messages. There we go. Make sure you say hi. Don't be bashful. Blue. Hello, Blue. Here's Blue. Blue. Hello, Blue. Say hi, Blue. Hello, Blue. Hello, Blue. Whoops. Whoops. Blue came to visit me. That's one of the cats. That's one of the cats that we rescued, and we helped her because she got caught in a trap and ended up coming over to our house, and we found her, and her leg was nearly, one of her paws right here was nearly severed, and so we just kind of adopted her, and we took her to the vet, and they had to do surgery on her, and this was quite a while ago. It was about a year ago or so. So anyway, welcome. Thank you for being here. As I said, if you're just joining us right now, my trusty coffee, Colin here. I appreciate everybody being here. Say hi, don't be bashful. So I got some information that I wrote down here today, and I just wanted to touch on this topic again, going off of the last video that I did. You know, we're talking about this whole spirit pervading us all in the world, the division, and all these cultural things and things that happened in the past. And you know, I understand, believe me, you know, the for generations that there is there's pain, there's hurt, and there's confusion, and there's misinformation out there, and people have been, you know, information has been held back, you know, about the truth of what happened to people, and people are finding out, and, you know, it's just, people are lashing out. People are basically, they're lashing out. They're doing it out of pain. They want someone to be responsible for it. They, you know, and it's like, how now? How do we, what do you do? I don't even, it's overwhelming. I mean, it's overwhelming for me. I can't even imagine people whose, you know, ancestors went through those things, and trying to make sense of it all. So, but what I want to do, hey, hello, Jeff, welcome. Thank you for being here. What I want to talk to you guys about today is kind of shifting here. Isla Gonzalez, bienvenida. Gracias por acompañarnos. Hey there. Hi, Jat. So what I want to talk about today is just kind of because of a conversation I was having with somebody, and I talked about this topic. I've talked about this topic several times, but somebody mentioned to me where they said, have you ever noticed how when we talk about, like, you know, don't be a victim, don't, you know, live in the past, it's always applied to the Black community, okay? And yes, I see that, but I don't only do that. I'm not, like I said, what I want to talk about today is because when I was talking to this person, I said, absolutely, I understand that. And that is very common. That is very common. However, I have talked about other situations, other events that happen with another race, and I've said exactly the same thing. I'm not saying it just for African descendants. I'm not saying it just for them. I'm saying for the human race in general, about being liberated, about being free. And so the message that I want to put out there, guys, if you saw the name of the live stream, okay, the great reality of it is they don't care. The leaders, the politicians, the prime ministers, the presidents, the activists, they don't care. Do you know what they do care about? They care about making a political statement. They care about making money. It's all about power and money. Guys, they don't care about your ancestors. They don't care about what you went through. They don't care what you suffered. They don't care. If you look at, for example, the case of with the NAACP, what they did with Rosa Parks. You guys studied about Rosa Parks, read about Rosa Parks. There were several women before her that did exactly the same as she did. They got kicked off a bus, they got arrested, but they weren't quite the right mold. The NAACP was looking for just that. They were waiting for just the right person, right? Because the one that did it before Rosa Parks was this younger lady. I forget the name. You guys can look up the information. Okay. This is out there. It's not me saying it. Okay. And there was this young lady who right before Rosa Parks, a couple of months before, the exact same thing that happened to her. Nothing ever happened. You've never heard of her because she was a young lady. She was single. Can't talk today. Single, and she was pregnant. And back in the 60s, that was like, didn't look good for the cause, right? So, and you're right, Jeff, exactly. The corporations, the money, it's all about money at the end of the day. It's all about exploiting people. It's all about power and control and leveraging and politics. They don't care. So what I'm going to talk about today, and I hope this strikes a note with some of you guys. I hope this touches some nerves. I hope this makes some people squirm in their seats. Because once again, this information I'm going to read you, and I have studied a lot about this topic because it's always fascinated me, and that's about the Nazi regime, the Holocaust, all of that. I've been reading books about that since I was in 6th grade. When I was in 6th grade, when other kids were playing video games, watching Star Wars and stuff like that, I read William Scherer's book, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. That's got like 1,500 pages. That's what I was reading about when I was in 6th grade. And what I want to read you guys about, this is from this information that I jotted all down by hand today. This is taken from a newspaper called The Times of Israel. The Times of Israel. And so it's about a investigation in a book that this man, Ronen Bergman, or Bergman, I don't know how you pronounce it, Bergman, I'll say Bergman. Ronen Bergman. So this is what the information says. Let me read it to you, and then I'll analyze some of this. So it says Ronen Bergman's book, Rise and Kill First, a 630-page chronicle of targeted assassinations by Israel, pre-state and in the 70 years of statehood, is filled with frequently staggering revelations and claims. The author, who said he carried out over 1,000 interviews and gained access and poured through innumerable crates of previously unpublished documents as he worked on this book for over 8 years. So on July 23rd, 1962, El Mossad, which is the Israeli Secret Service, the intelligence, right? El Mossad, July 23rd, 1962, the operatives Rafi Eitan and Zvi Aroni, okay? So if you read about the very famous operation where they went to Argentina and they arrested and kidnapped Adolf Eichmann, okay? The main ones that were behind that operation were Rafi Eitan and Zvi I don't know how you pronounce it, these names, Zvi Araoni. Okay, so if you read about that time period of the so-called Nazi hunters, you're going to see those names come up, Rafi and Zvi, okay? So they were observing in 1962, they were observing Auschwitz doctor Joseph Mengele, who was leaving his farm in Sao Paulo, Brazil, with some bodyguards. They anticipated kidnapping him and bringing him to Israel for trial, Eichmann style. But their sighting coincided with the first test firing by Egypt's President Nasser of Egypt of the missiles he'd been secretly developing. So Rafi Eitan and Zvi Aroni were called back to the Middle East. They'd spent years tracking the angel of death, Joseph Mengele, Dr. Joseph Mengele, and they had him in Brazil. They had him. He was right in front of them. And look at the difference, the huge difference between Mengele and Eichmann. Eichmann, who went to Argentina, basically was a nobody. I mean, outside of what happened during the, hello, Jackie, thank you for being here. Apart from what he did during the Holocaust and all of that, during the Second World War, he was the administrator. Okay, he was responsible for keeping the trains going to the death camps flowing and all of that, and so that was his job. He was one of the basically co-authors of the final solution. But Eichmann, when you read about Eichmann, he was nobody. He had no family, never finished school. He was a nobody. And when he went to Argentina, he disappeared. He was living off the grid. He married an Argentine woman. He was living in this little tiny concrete block house, just like everybody else, like very poor. On the other hand, Mengele in Sao Paulo had his own business. He was practicing medicine. He had a farm. He had bodyguards. And I'll tell you why in a moment. So these supposed Nazi hunters had probably the most notorious, one of the most notorious next to Eichmann. I mean, the angel of death, the guy, the Auschwitz doctor, the guy who did experiments on people. He walked right past them and they let him go, and then they left. They went back to the Middle East because what was happening with Egypt was more important. So listen to this. A year later, when they had that opportunity to grab Mengele, a year later, Mossad chief leader Yasser Harel left the service, and from then on until 1977, Bergman said, all Israeli prime ministers made Nazi war criminals the lowest priority. So the notion that the Mossad in the crucial years went looking for Nazi war criminals is plain false, Bergman said, and documentedly so. Generally speaking, Israeli intelligence did not hunt Nazi war criminals. The US government, in fact, and the CIA recruited more Nazis for their science programs than the Mossad ever captured. In fact, the only Nazi of any renowned name or importance that Mossad ever captured was Adolf Eichmann. That was it. And why? Well, let me read this next part to you. And I want you to listen to this next part, because this is going to hurt when you hear this for some of you, especially if you're of Jewish descendants, or if anybody out there has, nationality in Israel or any of that. This is the reality. Mossad leader Meir Amit openly told me, this is Bergman speaking, the one who wrote the book. Mossad leader Meir Amit openly told me in 1977, I prefer to deal with the threats of the present than ghosts of the past. And it's clear that these Nazis pose no threat. I'd rather pursue threats of the present than ghosts of the past, and these Nazis pose no threat. Bottom line is, over and done with, it's past, we don't care. And the only reason the state of Israel, the government of Israel, and Mossad ever got involved in any Nazi hunting was for personal reasons. In the case of Rafi Eitan and Zvi Araoni, they had direct ties to the Holocaust. Okay, they had been imprisoned. It was personal for them. And when they did the operation where they were able to capture and kidnap Adolf Eichmann and extradite him back to Israel, that was a rogue operation, just like the one with Mengele was. It was a complete rogue operation that did not have support from the Israeli government. In fact, they had to finance it themselves. They didn't want to get involved in it. Oh, but when they brought Adolf Eichmann back, then the politicians, the prime minister, and everybody was putting their name on it, right? Look what we did, right? That's what they always do. It's the same with slavery. It's the same with the Holocaust. It's the same with everybody. Nobody cares. Well, you do. Obviously, I care. You care. If you're a victim of that, if your family was involved in the Holocaust, obviously you care, right? But I'm talking about these people like the governments, your nations, your leaders, your activists. They don't care. What they do is they open up all these things, these movements and these days to remember it. And they open up museums and to make sure nobody forgets, right? To keep the fire alive and to keep you divided and to keep you hurt and to keep that wound open and to keep you angry. While the German people till this day, because the Holocaust, relatively speaking in human history, was very recent. And till this day, the German people have what they call the Great Shame, right? They don't talk about it. It's shameful for them. But why should that be? Why should the entire German nation be carrying with that? We know the names and the last names of every single German officer, SS, everybody that was involved in that. We know who to put the blame on. But no, we're going to have one group of people forever shamed, and we're going to have a group of people forever resentful, hurt, angry, lashing out. But you heard it here, what I read from this information. And you can look this up online yourself. There's tons, and this is not the first time I've read this. I've read this from years ago with what happened with Mengele. And you know what happened with Mengele? Big difference from Mengele, as I said, and Adolf Eichmann. Mengele, it says, was receiving, if you guys don't know this, but till this day, Joseph Mengele's family still has an agricultural businesses over in Germany. Okay, where they sell farming equipment and things like that. So way back in the 1950s, for over 35 years, because this particular information I got was from an article in the 1980s, like 1986, right around there. Mengele was receiving money from his family and father's agricultural business for over 35 years, between $100 and $180 per month, according to his son, Rolf Mengele. And that's the modern equivalent. $180 back in 1950 was $2,388. Now, do the math, and he was living in Argentina, and then he fled and he went to right, exactly, Jeff. Well, right. That's the thing. When you start out on the small level, but then you get up and then you figure out it's all politics. It's all about money. It's all about, hey, you got to get in line, right? You got to get in line and get with the program here. Okay? This is what the machine is. You need to fall in line with it. And people realize that once they get up to that level. Absolutely. So as I was saying, Mengele was getting, back in the 1950s, the equivalent of what today would be $2,388 per month when he was in Sao Paulo. Now, you have to remember that that's back in $2,388 back in 1950 in South America. Okay? Mengele was earning an extravagant amount of money that was getting funneled to him by his family. If somebody really wanted to capture Mengele, they could have done it at any time. There were paper trails. There were connections to him. He had a farm. He had bodyguards. The guy wasn't even remotely trying to hide himself. He wasn't trying to hide. He was hiding in plain sight. So very interesting that was never a priority to them. As I said there, interesting what Ronan Bergman said, that the US government and the CIA captured or recruited, whatever you want to say, more ex-Nazi officials for their science program than El Mossad ever did. Nobody was interested in justice. Nuremberg, okay, well, the forces, the combined forces, Britain, Russia, United States, who captured those. And that was a big show too. That was all a big show. It was all a big political stunt. But they had captured after the war all of those different war criminals. Okay, the top Nazi leaders and like Hermann Goering, who came and basically turned himself in, you know. But when it really comes to like after the fact, like justice, Nazi hunting, nobody cared. Nobody cared. The U.S. didn't care. The U.S. needed Nazi scientists for their nuclear program. That's what they cared about. But finding justice for the people, putting them on trial, oh, that would be a waste. So they kept it secret, and they had them working for the U.S. government. That is the truth. That is the truth. So the bottom line here is, guys, exactly what MJ always told us. You know the song? All I want to say is that they don't really care about us. You know? That's the truth. They don't care. The bottom line is they don't care. Nobody cares. Nobody cares if people live or die. Annie, what's going on? Did I miss something? Yeah, Annie, are you okay? Oh, yeah. I'm kind of slow today, guys. Annie, are you okay? Yeah, wrong song. Yeah. That's Billie Jean. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, of course, Jackie, of course. The U.S. government's the worst of them all. But, you know, the bottom line here is, guys, is that nobody cares, as I was saying, nobody cares about people dying. Nobody cares about genocides. Nobody cares. Except the people suffering and losing their family members and losing their children. But the leaders, activist governments, they don't care. Look what's going on with Israel and Palestine right now. Look what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. Nobody cares. Look at Palestine. It's leveled. It's destroyed. They're killing people every single day. Aid can't get in. It's just Ukraine, the same thing. And what are people mad about? Oh, because we're sending money over there. You know, we could be using that money back home, and we could, and all that. People are dying. Children. Hospitals getting bombed and all this stuff. And it's just everything, all the rhetoric out there because of social media and the information that people are getting. A lot of people get their news, God help us, getting news from social media, where everything is manipulated and biased. And yet we're forgetting about the human tragedy that's going on right before our eyes. You know, and we can talk about, so you know, Israel will forever have in their up their sleeve the Holocaust card. But look what they're doing with Palestine. Look what Netanyahu is doing with Palestine. How is it different? It just, you know, yes, Jackie, exactly. But we're going to try we try to explain it through these biblical things. Oh, you don't understand, Carla, this tribe and that tribe and these people and that. And like this other guy telling me today that, the Bhutan from South Africa and we're being punished by Yahweh. And come on, what the fuck? Really? This is what we're buying into and believing this? You know, don't try to tell me I don't understand. People killing people. Okay? The pain the grief of human loss. Who doesn't understand that? Because of power and greed and control and interests. You know, and definitely, of course, the you know, nations and, you know, the media and everything has demonized and utilized certain groups of people. Absolutely, right? But if you go so far as to say, like, what's happening to a certain race of people goes all the way back to the Old Testament, because Jehovah is punishing a certain group of people because they're cursed. I mean, what the holy fuck? I can't, there's nothing we can do for that person. I can't do anything for you. If you believe that, well then, well, you just got to put up with it then, I guess, because it's from God, right? I mean, I don't know, guys. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. This whole thing, you know, just I don't know. It's mind-boggling, really, to use a good East Coast expression. Mind-boggling. Hi, Cindy. How are you doing? You know, all I really want to say is they don't really care about us, like Michael Jackson said. See, Amor. See, yeah, the power might go out. So if it cuts off all of a sudden, that's why. And that's the end of the broadcast. There's a big storm moving in here, so I don't know if I can really see the. It's really picking up and stuff, but just, you know, it's like that guy that, remember from the what was his name, Rodman, guy that got beat up by the cops during the sparked off the riots, the LA riots. One that said, "Can't we all just get along?" You know, can't we all just get along? Rodney King, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking of Dennis Rodman. the basketball player / had a stint in wrestling as well. Rodney King, thank you. Yeah, Rodney King. Can't we all just get along, you know? That was a famous skit on In Living Color too. But, you know, it just, I don't know, guys. It just, oh man, you know, I think maybe even before I knew a lot of this stuff was coming, like today, it seems like in my subconscious, I knew that getting out of the United States was just my future. Because, you know what, guys, I just don't even want to be involved in any of it anymore. I don't want to be involved. I don't want to be, you know, I'm not really up with politics. I'm not. Yeah, him and Reginald Diaz. Over the, can't we all just get along? I think that was David Alan Grier that played Rodney King. Yes, Reginald Denny, that's right. He was the semi driver that they dragged out of his truck. You know, and it just, guys, that's why, you know, it just, I live down here in Honduras. I live my life. I go to my job, and I just stay out of it. I stay out of it. And the run-ins I have with anybody on a day-to-day basis, you know, I just treat everybody with respect. I treat everybody with love and kindness, and that's it. And I just, all this arguing and all this stuff and divisiveness going on, I just, because, you know what, I have to disconnect myself from it, because I'm kind of like an empath, you know, and all this stuff affects me because it hurts, and I wish that there was something I could do about it, and of course I can't, not even close. All of us are, we can't do anything about what's going on. We can't do anything. The only thing we can do is just, when we have the opportunities, just be kind to people. Just be kind. You know, and that's Cindy. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I feel like. You know, I really feel like America is heading towards its demise. Yeah, Jackie. Yep. High five through the screen. Yep. Me too. We just absorb all of that, the feelings of people, everything good or bad, you know, and it really deeply makes me reflect, and I think about it and I worry about it, and it's all futile because I can't do anything about it. But as I was saying, Cindy, I think, you know, I really do think America is quickly, you know, we're seeing its demise. It's heading towards its demise because when you start having all these rifts, which I think we've hid for a long time, we've tried to hide it behind the guise of, you know, all of our civil rights and this and that. But now it's just coming out like, fuck it. Everyone's just like, yeah, I'm racist, tough, deal with it, right? People are just not even hiding it anymore. And when you have such division, the only outcome is you fall. You fall. You end up falling. The country will fall because it can't be divided. You'll end up in another civil war, or you'll end up with something happening. You won't be strong enough, at the very least, to come together and protect yourselves against an enemy that comes to invade, for example. Either America will get conquered, or economically it's going to fall apart, or it's going to tear itself apart with another civil war. Yeah, Jeff. Yeah, exactly. Right on. Right on. I never thought it would be from within. Yeah, you're right, Cindy. Exactly. The frog theory, right? Right. In the boiling water, you boil them slowly, raise the temperature little by little. The frog just sits there and boils to death. And that's what's happening. Little by little. Look at the president. President defies judges, defies the Supreme Court, doesn't listen to anybody, does whatever he wants, and everyone's just like, oh, it's okay. You got a dictator. No one even, they don't even realize it. People don't even realize it. It happened it was so insidious and so gradual. People don't even realize it. They have a dictator in America. This guy Trump wants to, for his birthday, he wants to celebrate with a military parade, you know, with tanks and all that. When have you ever seen that? Where have you seen that before? You see that in countries with dictators, like North Korea and China and Russia, where they got a parade about with their soldiers goose stepping and their tanks. America doesn't do that. Presidents don't celebrate their birthday with, you know, with a military parade. It's all bullshit. All bullshit, you know? You know, I just want to, I would just rather focus on the things that bring me joy, things that I have a connection with, like art and music and people, you know, just human relations, things that can bring us all together. You know, just reminds me of, like, for example, years ago when I went to England and Scotland. So the time I was in England, I went to with my friend, and we strolled down to. We were in London. We strolled down to Piccadilly Circus, and there were all these buskers, you know, street musicians, and it was just great. It's just in Europe, it's such a great environment, you know. The pubs, they're so healthy. I mean, it's just relax. You can go in there, have a pint, just talk, nobody, no fights, nothing, and you go down, you see the buskers, you can listen to music. And there was a guy, street musician, and he was playing Jimi Hendrix. And he started playing this Hendrix song, The Wind Cries Mary. You guys know that song? And there was the street musician. He was a black guy, from England. There was this other black gentleman, my friend, and myself. So we got 2 white guys, 2 black guys, English, a white English guy, a white kid from Minnesota, all of us singing Hendrix together. Butterflies and zebras, da 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 da, and the wind whispers, Mary, da da da, dee dee dee. And you know what? All that mattered in that moment? Music bringing us together. All we cared about was Hendrix. That's the kind of stuff I love. That's why I love music so much. And that's in my heart, in my soul, because music has no boundaries. The same way as love. Love and music have no boundaries. In fact, one of my favorite songs of all times, you guys can look this up if you want on YouTube. It's an Elton John song called Believe. Believe. Great song. I believe in love. It's all we got. Love had no boundaries, no borders to cross. Love is simple. Hate breeds those who think difference is the child of disease. Churches and dictators, politics and papers, everything crumbles sooner or later, but love, I believe in love. Oh, love that song. Love it, love it, love it. That is the truth. All comes down. It all crumbles. Churches and dictators, politics and papers, everything crumbles sooner or later, but love. Wow. Elton John is a genius. Genius. But yeah, you guys I'll put that on. I'll have to make a short out of that one. So I'm just remembering it. You can look that up on YouTube though. Elton John, Believe. So that was early 2000s. He had a music video and really loved that song. It just touched me ever since I heard it. Qué rico, amo. Cambio el clima. So yes, music heals. Music brings us together. Music breaches gaps, chasms. Or just play my album. Which one's that? I play my piano, listen to music. Just get water, animals are my refuge. Yeah, absolutely. Got to make a metal version of that song. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And music, just like art, music, music brought down regimes. Music ushered in new eras. Like the songs of Metallica and the Scorpions, and back in the early 90s, when the Berlin Wall came down and the Soviet Union fell, all that stuff, and all that time, those people had the music. They had rock music, they had metal music, but it was all underground because that was all prohibited there. They weren't allowed to have that music or have concerts, and You know, one of the yeah, Spinal Tap. Yeah, yep. Stonehenge. This amp goes up to 11. That's probably the most iconic line ever. This one goes up to 11. Not 10, no, 11. That's such a classic. That movie. I watched that movie way back in the day, back in the 80s. This is Spinal Tap, the movie. That was, but what was I talking about? No, I forgot. About the music, about the Berlin Wall, Metallica, the prohibited music. I can't remember now. It'll come back to me. Yeah, well, yeah, having the vinyl albums, that's the best. The best. I used to have a vinyl album of the Hotel California album. Man, I love that. I had an old turntable in my bedroom way back in the day, and I used to love playing that on there. So good. So good. Yeah, you can't beat that sound. Just that soft, that warm sound, you know. But you know, yeah, music has so much power, you know. Oh, what I was gonna say was you can also look this up on YouTube. You know how music brings people together. There's a live version of Rammstein's Du Hast, you know, a song Du Hast. And there's a version of that where they're playing in a stadium in Moscow, in Russia. So you've got a German band in Russia. You've got a crowd of Russians singing in German. I mean, it's can you imagine that? I mean, years ago that would have been unheard of. You know, yes, Jackie, absolutely. Yes. They absolutely do. Yeah. So anyway, guys, well, I'm gonna wrap this up here because we got a storm rolling in here, and I'm outside. So I want to thank all of you guys for being here. Thanks for having this discussion with me, and you know, we're just all of us are going through this journey of life. We're all going through it. We're all trying to figure this out. Yeah. And we're just trying to we're all trying to go through this mystery of life and find our way and just, you know, do the best we can. That's all we can do. Okay. So see all you guys in the next one. See you later, Jeff. See you, Cindy, Jackie, everybody else that's here. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next one.